Welcome to Mike and Mike Theology Plus, the podcast where we talk about all things related to Christian theology. All right, welcome to Mike and Mike Theology Plus,
where Theology Matters.
That's right. So I'm sitting here with the other Mike.
Wrong. Wait. Wrong.
There we go. So we've just finished a
6-month
series on tulip because we like flowers.
That's right. We don't like dealing with the facts.
Right.
We like playing in the field.
Right. So we thought we would take time to do a podcast on just talking about a group that we moderate called
Theology Matters.
Theology Matters.
Which is where the tagline comes. Well, yeah, it's where the tagline comes from.
Yeah, so it's us two, a husband and wife, then
Sarah and Arnold,
but he doesn't like going by Arnold.
No, call him that and he won't answer.
And then Caleb,
yep,
who's in Long Island, I think, if I recall right, somewhere in New York,
someplace where you can't legally own guns,
right? And Parker, where you can legally own guns.
I'm kind of thinking with Parker, it wouldn't matter.
Right. Yeah. So the six of us currently moderate, and it's just a fun fact. 5 of us would totally agree with everything that we just got doing all of our podcasts on.
Well, I mean, 2 of us kind of have to, right?
Right.
We should agree with ourselves.
Right.
I hope.
Right. And then there's one, we won't say Caleb's name.
Right, yeah. Definitely don't want to call Caleb out.
Who's more of an Arminian. Although, I don't know that I really know exactly where Caleb falls. We've had some discussions in our admin.
Well, he doesn't want to be called an Arminian.
Right.
He doesn't want to be called a synergist. I think maybe he has self-identified as a traditionalist, as the traditionalists in the Southern Baptist Convention currently abuse and misappropriate the term.
Why would you say that? I know the answer, but I think I would just want you to.
I mean, if you look back the history of the Southern Baptist Convention back to when it was begun in the 1800s, it was very clearly coming out of a Calvinistic, actually Reformed Baptist background. If you look at the I think it was the Philadelphia Confession, which is more or less a word-for-word takeover of the London Baptist Confession of 1689. So the whole Southern Baptist Convention comes out of a Calvinistic Baptist background. And so the idea that those who don't believe in the doctrines of grace or sovereign election by God or a Calvinistic soteriology, that's not the traditionalist understanding within the Southern Baptist Convention. I mean, maybe if you go back to like the 40s or 50s, that might be more predominant at that point. But historically speaking, it just the traditional understanding in the SBC was a Calvinistic soteriology.
Yeah. So that's kind of a insight into our moderators.
Well, we're a little over 200 people now.
Yeah, I was just pulling up our webpage so I could see where that is. It comes up front and center on my mobile shortcut, but it doesn't here.
Yeah.
216 members now.
Oh,
yeah.
Hey, that's a good number. It's a cube.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, 6 cubed.
Yeah.
And we have 6 moderators. It works.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So that means
when we hit 343, we have to have 7 moderators.
There you go. So I thought, I'd just read kind of our group rules, kind of tell you where we are.
This was supposed to be a fun one.
Well, it is fun. Hopefully it's fun. Well, let's just say, so if you're at all on the Facebook scene, there was I'm going to need to mute my computer if it's going to keep making sounds like that. So I just got a Theology Matters. So Sarah and
Kiefer,
and Parker are texting us as we speak, as we literally speak right now.
Oh wow!
So if you're at all familiar, so we both joined Everything Bibles, which is a group that's very wide in its doctrinal attendance.
So interestingly, I don't know if you saw this. It happened, I think, later this afternoon. Or I saw it. No, I think it happened yesterday, but I saw it later today. I don't remember what the context was, but Mike Spihar, I don't know if you recognize that name.
I think you traffic Everything Bibles more than I do.
Okay.
You have a greater love for premium Bibles than I do.
Okay. He posted on something that said, somebody posted a meme, or not a meme, but a video of two gazelles fighting, and a lion comes running up, and like all the other gazelles book it, but these two gazelles that are fighting basically don't recognize that the predator is coming, and he gets like 3 feet away before they go, oh, and he gets one of them. And, it's like, if we're so busy fighting ourselves, we don't recognize the true danger. And Mike actually makes a comment. He's like, a whole lot of people who claim to be Christian aren't Christian, including a number of people in this group. And I was like, whoa. And this is on an Everything Bibles post.
Right.
And I totally agree with him.
Right.
But I was like, dang, son.
That's strong.
That's strong.
Right.
Yeah, that's
So the purpose of Everything Bibles is really for those Bible aficionados who are looking for some unique Bibles, premium Bibles, old Bibles.
Just kind of love printed versions.
Right.
Want to discuss translation stuff. I mean, it's a wide strike zone.
Right, yeah. And then I guess out of that, there was born this short-lived group.
The
Benny Hinn's Magic Hour or something. I don't remember.
It had a long name.
Yeah.
It was very mocking.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be a place where people could come to discuss Theology Matters. But it really turned out to just...
It was really Abram's meme generator group.
yeah. Abrams had a bunch of memes he put every day on there, and then eventually it got shut down. Well, there were a handful of us who were like, there was something good here that we would like to see further.
Well, I mean, it really devolved down into a thermonuclear war between Arminians and Calvinists. Right. And that was problematic.
And I'm okay with those wars as long as they're done right.
I'm not okay with thermonuclear war like that.
I'm okay with deep discussions where we kind of dig into the word, what's it say, what's that say, but where it's just, here's my meme versus your meme, and you're not going to listen to each other, and you're not going to talk, then that was not good. And so,
and then the final thing that caused them to shut it down was pretty wild. I saw some of it.
Oh, yeah.
There were some things said that should not be said on a Christian really by believers at all. But there were.
I didn't see that.
There were some rage quits, and some language was thrown around that.
You mean English or Greek?
It was in English. There was a little bit of a schadenfreude to kind of be chuckling at, like, I can't believe somebody just said that. But yeah, it got out of hand. It was inappropriate, and I think...
So out of the ashes...
Right.
So Theology Matters is kind of like a phoenix.
So our nickname should be Fox?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So out of the ashes, I think it was you and me and Parker and Caleb at first.
Correct.
And we're like, hey, we'd like to have a place, but we want to more...
We're going to take the good side of the Benny Hinn group.
Right. And we want to kind of structure it more. There were people in that group that had still some wildly different theological notions. So we wanted to narrow it down to at least a place where we had at least enough common ground that all of the kind of more interesting stuff to talk about we could discuss.
Yeah, so we kind of set up the parameters to be historically orthodox. Right. And so we have some rules in place that you have to affirm.
Right. So here are our theological rules. The Bible is the inspired, inerrant word of God in the original autographs. So some of you KJVOs
Which, interestingly, that really hasn't come up in our group.
Right.
But it comes up in the group where it's specifically disallowed.
Right.
I would welcome a KJVO discussion.
Right.
If somebody wants to champion it, our group, that's kosher.
Right.
Now, you're going to get a whole lot of pushback.
I think you would.
Which is also kosher.
Right. Yeah.
But in Everything Bibles, where it is specifically outlawed, you get people that are like...
I want to walk up to the line.
I'm going to, here's the line I'm going to...
Yeah, yeah.
And I just don't know why they keep doing it there.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you get people who are so mad because it's not allowed. I mean, it's... Anyway, if you're part of Everything Bibles... and you're a KJVO.
Michael has pent up anti-KJVO that's ready to pounce.
It's a discussion that I'm willing to have.
Right.
And it gets irritating to kind of halfway have the discussion in a forum where it's disallowed.
Right.
If you want to come do it in the right way within our framework of rules,
right,
in a respectful way,
sure,
let's hash that out.
Right. Number 2, God is all powerful, all present, all knowing, and all good. So trying to capture the omnis. Number 3, God is one in essence and 3 in persons. So
you got to be a Trinitarian.
Yeah. God the Son condescended to take on human flesh so that he could redeem fallen man.
So kind of Council of Chalcedon.
Right. God created the universe and all that it contains. He's the author of all life.
Who does that exclude?
Well, I think it excludes...
who would that catch that the previous ones hadn't?
I was just thinking, what's orthodox?
Okay. I agree with it.
Yeah,
I'm happy to have that there, but I've almost kind of seen this as a progressively narrowing funnel.
Well, it would narrow out probably Francis Collins.
I'm not familiar with.
He's the Biologos. He's
theistic evolution?
Theistic evolution, which I couldn't think of. He likes to be called a evolutionary creationist, but whatever. I'm
not even sure that excludes him, though.
It might or might not. I was just saying, I think I wrote these down and y'all gave me some feedback, and then we posted them. So. Okay. Salvation is from God by grace alone to man through faith alone in Christ Jesus alone for God's glory alone. That was a recent ad, really, because I don't even remember the guy's name, and he may or may not still be part of the group, but it seemed like there was someone that was pushing some more Roman Catholic stuff.
Michael Farber?
Faber? Yeah, I don't remember. So we thought... Roman,
or was that the one that came after the serpent seed stuff?
No, okay. Serpent seed was after
even
that.
More recent than
that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the moderators talked to. Is this open to people who would buy into the Catholic idea of justification, the formal idea of Catholics are welcome as long as they affirm these things. So you could attend a Catholic church, and as long as you can affirm that that's the case, then we wouldn't exclude you. But if you're going to hold,
I guess that from my perspective, this is intended to be a Christian group with intramural debates,
right?
Which kind of like a local congregation, you're not going to infallibly judge everyone correctly. And I would say we're probably excluding... I think Abram is a believer, but he kind of was around the periphery of our group and making comments a little bit at the start.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he self-excluded himself because he didn't want to play by the rules that we were setting up.
Right.
And I say, yeah, Abram, I don't think you're a good fit for our group, not because you're not a Christian, but because
of the next rules.
You don't want to do it in the respectful fashion that we're requiring.
Right. So those were kind of our doctrinal rules. Then we had kind of our rules of etiquette, which were, I will show respect to other people made in the image of God at all times. And really, these are just kind of outworkings of what Christians are called to be anyways. Mm-hmm. So Abram's... I will respect that others can faithfully read the Word of God and genuinely come to different conclusions than I do on secondary and tertiary doctrines. So I think we all have these prime doctrines that we would not budge on. But then there's doctrines that we would say, this is clear, but it's not a hill I'm going to die on. And then there's doctrines beyond that even that we're like, this is what I think it is. It's not necessarily speculative, but I think that there's this, hopefully you have a layering of doctrines. And if you put everything in those definitional A categories, then who can you fellowship with?
Yeah, good luck.
Right.
And the way, so the first person that comes to mind in our group would be Sparky.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think Sparky and I could be part of the same local body. That's not me saying that I think Sparky's not a believer, but our secondary issues are divergent enough that I think that one of us would be uncomfortable in the church that the other one is comfortable in. And the way I explained the 3-layer system recently to him is, my first layer is, if we disagree on this, I'm saying you're not a believer.
Mm-hmm.
My second layer is, if we disagree on this, you are a believer because we agree on the first level, but second level disagreements mean that we can't worship in the same local congregation
regularly and comfortably.
Right. And one thing that I would put out there is like paedobaptism versus credo baptism. I cannot be a member in a Presbyterian church, not because I think they're unbelievers, but because I know they're going to be baptizing babies. That's going to wound my conscience. That's a substantial enough secondary level doctrine that I'm not going to go there as my place that I worship. Tertiary stuff is, you and I have disagreements on certain things. You're wrongly an old earth creationist. I correctly hold to young earth creationists.
So maybe that's a topic for future discussion.
Actually, Les told me today that we should do that, and I'm like, we're not.
We're not ready to tear into each other that much.
I don't know that. I don't think that you and me debating is the spirit of this podcast that I'm looking for.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I'm open to anything, but that doesn't strike me as, oh, I can't wait for that one.
Right, yeah. Perhaps we should just do 30 minutes from your viewpoint by yourself, 30 minutes from my viewpoint by myself, and then just roll with everything. Like, here's Mike A's position, here's Mike B's position, and we won't tell you which one's Mike A and Mike B. And then... I
mean, unless you're watching. Right. Anyway.
No, I'm saying, I won't say I'm A or you're A. Never mind. Because you're the other Mike.
Anyway, so tertiary stuff is disagreements that can coexist within a local body without causing a rupture in fellowship.
Yeah.
And so what we're looking for, I guess what we're looking for in our group is B and C, or secondary and tertiary level issues to debate and discuss.
Right.
We're not debating the primary stuff.
Right. If you're questioning, the deity of Christ,
our group is not the one.
Right.
Yeah. Now, if you have questions about that,
how did that work?
Yeah.
Or if you want to say, a lot of people will say, this is craziness, and post some article where the article questions it, then we discuss it. That's kosher, to mix our metaphors. Number 3, and I really like this one. Because I think it really encapsulates the spirit of our group. I will doggedly fight ideas, but be a gentle corrector of others. And I think all of us at sometimes get caught up by this, because sometimes we're pursuing something and we get our emotions into it, but it's a discipline to be able to respect the person that you're speaking with, and even more typing against, because typing, there's some impersonality. It's not as personal when you're typing.
Quick PSA: Facebook is not anonymous.
Yeah,
just in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
And by the way, totally unrelated to our group, but somewhat related to this thing here. I just recently got a promotion at work, and I'm in the process of hiring a team. Somebody submits an application. First 2 things I do, I look you up on LinkedIn, I look you up on Facebook. Sorry.
Yeah.
There are certain... Now, I'm not trying to hire all believers or anything. I'm not part of a Christian company. I'm not just looking for people that look like me or sound like me or think the way that I think. What I'm looking for is stupid, egregious behavior that I'm like, if they asked me, why did you hire this person knowing this, I need to be able to defend it. If I can't defend the behavior,
right.
So.
And I guess it might get, have you found anyone you're like, no?
No, actually I haven't yet. Yeah. But I have found people on LinkedIn where I go look at their experience and I'm like, you thought this job would be but no, I have not yet come across personal behavior.
It's funny that you say that. It just reminds me. So we were looking for a lead logistician. And I say we. Actually, my prime contractor when I was working with COC was looking for a lead logistician. And I was on him like, you owe me this billet. This job isn't getting done. He's like, Michael, I'm trying. I have all these people who are truck drivers submitting for a lead logistician. And I call them and I'm like, what's your experience with logistics? Well, I drive truck. And I'm like, okay, that is not what this is. This is defense acquisition logistics. So, yeah.
But my point is, we as believers ought to treat people on Facebook with the same care and respect as we would face to face. And what I'm concerned with is some of the bad behavior we see online actually reflects the way people would treat you face to face.
Yeah, and there have been a couple times in a discussion, and I felt like, was that a little too much? And in those cases, the person was like, okay, yeah, that's a good point. And I'm okay, well, they didn't take it. But I guess the point is, I think all of us, even moderators, are subject to cross over that line. And if we do, you just say, you can, backstep, apologize or whatever. And, that was out of line. Let me rephrase it this way or something like that.
And let me, 2 quick stories related to that. One is, if you're not a moderator but are part of our group, please know we have lots of discussions in our moderator channel, and frequently one moderator will say, hey guys, what did you think of that comment? Was it in bounds? Was it out of bounds? And we really do seek to get that kind of feedback because we want to be people of integrity. We want to be people who actually abide by the rules that we're requiring others to abide by.
Yeah.
Secondly, I have had multiple instances of people who have come to me and said privately through Messenger, I'm sorry for the way that I acted. One guy was in Everything Bibles when it initially happened, and now he's part of Theology Matters, and he came to me and said, I was going through some stuff at the time. He was really attacking Reformed theology. He's like, I'm actually a lot more open to it now. Thanks for not being a jerk to me at the time. And I apologize. And it was fantastic. And I was able to go back to him and say, do I have anything that I need to apologize for? Are we good? And it turned adversaries into friends.
Yeah, that's good.
I had another one recently where a guy was like, I just got too emotionally involved. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And it does happen. We have the rules so that we can address it. But just like we talked about with perseverance of the saints and church discipline,
we're not always going to be perfect.
We're not looking to immediately kick people just because they make a mistake or stub their toe. We are looking to immediately kick some kinds of people that come in and we're like, whoa, that's nope.
Right. Yeah.
But, I've been very encouraged as much of the crap of Facebook that you see, where I go and I see people making comments and they're like calling other people out by name and they're just like, flipping them the bird and F this. And I'm just thinking, do they not know that their name is signed to this? I mean, it's amazing. So as much as there is that part of Facebook, and as much as we do see some behavior on our channel from time to time, group, whatever you want to call it, that's inappropriate, I've been rather encouraged by
I thought it's been overall good.
Yeah, but even when it gets out of bounds, I've had the restoration that ought to characterize us as believers that's been very, very encouraging.
Right, verse 4, and this is, again, kind of a purpose. What?
Verse 4?
Verse 4, yeah. Rule 4. I will honor Christ by being here to sharpen both myself and other members in this group. Sharpening doesn't always feel good. One of my good friends was a member of the group, and he didn't like it bothers him to be told you're wrong. I think. And I think that it takes a certain type of personality to go, all right, you're telling me I'm wrong. What are your reasons? Let me evaluate those reasons that you're telling me you're wrong. Okay, well, I've listened to those, and I think these reasons are wrong. So I think you're wrong because of this. And that's typically how these discussions go back and forth, because you kind of have your opening salvos, and if someone else will come back, and then you're going back and forth, and you're digesting each other's reasons, and you're pulling out your reasons. So this really is, hopefully, I know some have said that they've changed their mind on stuff. Sparky said that I changed his mind about, where life begins at conception. That's awesome to me. And so hopefully we are sharpening each other and, helping each other think better.
Interestingly, that discussion made me question where I think life begins, because, biblically, they had no scientific conception. They had no idea with the specificity that we do today.
Right.
And I haven't come down anywhere yet, but the argument that life begins at implantation versus conception, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to consider. I think probably that's
conception.
Probably that's a distinction without much of a difference at all.
Right.
And certainly it doesn't matter.
You're not pregnant until implantation.
You can pick one or the other, and it changes nothing about what policies you would support.
Well, and something Mike Scott Klusendorf says is that if you're unsure, then you err on the side of caution. Just like if you're blowing up a building, if you're unsure if there's people in there, you don't just blow up the building. You know what? We really don't know if there's people there or not. We kind of tend to think that there's not, but
right. Which I wonder when the last time that handle thing was actually
there.
used.
I think they actually sometimes have some mock ones today that they'll have like an honorary guy do, and then someone goes beep with the button.
Sorry, what was the last one?
Sharpen both myself and others.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so to that point, our wives aren't members in this group.
No, my wife is not.
And our wives have no interest in being members in this group.
Right.
And we have no interest in our wives. Because it's just not who they are.
It's not their personality.
This is not a group for everyone.
Right.
And we're not trying to be mean, but it doesn't fit everyone's personality.
Yeah, you gotta have some thick skin and be willing to say, this is what I think and why.
Mm-hmm.
Lay it out there and be willing to defend it, and be willing to be told you're wrong and go, okay, well, maybe I am. Let me think through that. No, I still think I'm right for these reasons, whatever that happens to be. Number 5, I will respect the admins and their decisions. If I have an issue, I will send a private message to one or more of the admins for resolution. This is really just, if you have a grievance, this is Matthew 18. Go to that person in private.
And Romans 13.
Right. Yeah.
Respect authority of, this is an optional group.
Right.
You want to be a part of it? Here are our rules. We made it. It's our, we're not dictators, but you didn't make the group.
Right. Yeah.
You want to go make your own?
Right.
Play by those rules.
Number 6, I will not use profanity. Note, what some consider profane will differ from others. The admins will determine which words are in and out. Please consider obvious profanity to be out of bounds. More important than profanity, however, and this is my personal conviction, is the careless use of the names, titles, honorifics of God. Don't, is what I have there. But we do have this caveat, but no one's taken it up so far. Note, if one wants to talk about Paul's use of, and I put profane words, after I've read it more.
Vulgar?
Yeah, vulgar words. Or something similar. Please note that in the original post with a warning, and then put the actual comments below. Like, hey, we're going to talk about Paul's use of the word dung, which is the only one that readily comes to mind. But yeah, so obviously, just we're not going to be rude to one another with our language,
and we might need to. And I don't know, maybe it's covered in general. I'm more concerned about how people treat others with their words. mean, you can be devastating without cursing.
Oh, yeah.
And so...
but that's probably covered under the rules above, yeah.
I just don't think cursing is... I mean, we'd probably need to have it for the off chance that it does eventually happen. That's just not a big concern of mine.
Yeah, I don't think everyone has the same sensibilities. To me, maybe we have a podcast on language at some point in time, language in general. But my personal stance is I'd much rather watch a war movie that's rated R, where they're using the F word or other things in there, than a PG-13, teeny bop flick where they're taking God's name over and over again. I don't see why Christendom tolerates the PG-13 where they're taking God's name in vain, but then they get all cringy about a war movie where men, and I guess women now, are in harm's way, and they use strong language to talk about the fact that they're in harm's way. So,
yeah, I think you and we've talked about this a little bit. For me, being a German major in college and getting some exposure to other languages, it really just heightens the fact in my mind that words are simply words. And I can say something that's meaningless to me that if a German person heard it is absolutely horrific to them. And vice versa. I mean, they also have stuff where the S word in German is also an S word, but there's a phrase that includes that in it that basically is just their way of saying, I don't care. Kind of similar to the way we might say, I don't give a crap. It's
not involving bears or anything.
But it's a little bit strongish in the language, but
it's common parlance.
Yeah. And, if you go back into the Middle Ages, there are words that are considered vulgar by most conservative Christians these days that were not considered vulgar back then. And so I think you and I are very much in alignment. I don't go around using that kind of language regularly. But at the same time, when I hear somebody saying the F word, it kind of bothers me, but it bothers me more from, let's be grown up and professional,
right? Rather than,
I can't believe they said that.
Right. To me, it says, even though we may disagree with the rules of our society, we're going to follow them so that we're not rude to others. And the people who speak that way are unwilling to not be rude to others. And that's why it bothers me.
Yeah. Interesting side note again here. My boss at work, we were having a conversation. It was a phone conversation. And he's ex-military and has moderately salty language. I mean, it really doesn't bother me. Yeah, well, we'll go with that. I mean, it really doesn't bother me, but we were having a conversation and I think he dropped an F-bomb or something. And he was like, whoa, I don't think I've ever heard you say a curse word. Does this bother you? And I was like, no, it doesn't. Sometime I'd love to tell you why you don't hear me say that, but no, you're not like. And I thought it was an interesting thing that I tend to not think people notice or care or whatever. Right. And it turns out that it did. And so maybe that'll be an opportunity to share the gospel because my king owns my mouth. Right. Yeah. But also at the same time, when I hear people saying certain things that aren't related to a misuse of the name of God, I'm like, okay, well, to some extent, it's not a big deal.
Immaturity.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so there's some other rules here about how we administrate strikes 1, 2, and 3. Basically, we're given a chance. We're not trying to just kick people out like you said before.
But we do reserve the right to do it immediately at our discretion.
Right. If you said something, very...
And we've almost used that.
Yeah, yeah. And then we have a couple notes about, don't just post memes. Because we're trying to get away from the Benny Hinn stuff, which we haven't really gotten into, although some of us are trying to drag us back into that. Not really. But
we're looking at you, Parker.
But, so memes are fine. I love memes, but we don't want to just be a meme generation group. We want it to have substance. So if you have a meme that you want to talk about, post it, and then let's talk about the substance behind it. But
yeah.
So anything else about the group? I mean, maybe we can talk about some of the topics currently going. That's a meme.
It is
from Parker.
Yep. That's why we're looking at Parker.
Why is Christus Victor making a comeback? So talking about the types of views on atonement. You said you are a ransom theory guy, so that's good. Psalm 88 doesn't have a place in the churches. Is euthanasia ethically viable for Christians?
We've had several of those in the past couple days.
Yeah.
And I guess I've been a little bit surprised at, I don't know if it's a vocal minority or if it's actually representative, but there have been several people posting who are in favor of elective euthanasia. And I say elective euthanasia because to me, there's a difference between the one example that was mentioned of, you've got somebody that's bleeding out in front of you and it's just kind of slow and agonizing. Is it okay to end their suffering? Somebody's being burned to death. Can you shoot them? And I got to be honest, that one took a little bit of a weird turn with bragging about accuracy with certain rounds and weapons. And
So I haven't read them all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
As a moderator, do you feel like you should read every comment?
No.
Okay, good. So I hope I wasn't falling down on the job, because there's some I just skim. Like, I think there's topics that different people are more passionate about. So if it's something I'm not as passionate about, then I probably won't weigh in.
Oh, I'm sure I don't read everyone.
Yeah. So there was one of the guys who, I think his name was Adam, who said he was a nurse, and he knows that morphine, which is a painkiller, also has some secondary effects like reduced blood pressure, reduced respiration, reduced heartbeat. And when you get so far along and you administer morphine for pain, you know that the body is so near death that that's going to be the thing that takes them out. And I think he was saying that he's uncomfortable administering that last one. And I can understand the uncomfortableness of it, but I wouldn't put that in the same category as euthanasia.
Yeah, I agree.
You're treating pain, palliative care. And the secondary effect is this person who's in pain is also very close to death. And the treatment of the pain also is what, I guess, pushes them over that last little.
Yeah, it felt like he was talking about something different from just kind of a standard morphine overdose. That it was just kind of standard dosing that's overwhelming somebody who is very diminished and close to death. Right,
like they're fighting, cancer and they're on the last part. Which would I wouldn't say that if you have someone who is, for the most part, fine, they're up and walking around, they're like, okay, I'm tired of doing this. Just give me a lot of morphine. Yeah, that's a different category.
Completely agree. And I feel like there, on that one in particular, some of the people who were posting in support of, there's another kind of sort of meme that, anyway, they were acting as if.
So this is a wrestler guy? Is that? I don't even know this guy.
I think that's Vince McMahon.
Okay.
Yeah. I think he was like president of WWE for.
That's what I thought, but I thought, is he some preacher that I'm not?
No, I'm pretty sure that's not a preacher. But it seemed like people were saying, what, are you just going to let somebody with bone cancer scream in agony uselessly for weeks? And I'm like, that's not the only other option to killing them.
Right. Like, be in agony or die. There's some middle ground there.
And so I feel like we need to have a little more of a nuanced discussion and educate people to what we're actually saying.
Yeah.
What's that one?
does fasting benefit the faster, or how does fasting benefit the faster?
Right.
Brian posted about a soft answer turning away wrath. And he's really looking at a word study for answer and a grievous answer stirs up anger or something like that. Whatever that verse says. So we did have a giveaway. I didn't have any issue with that as long as it doesn't get out of hand. Get posted.
People want to give stuff away. I'm okay with that. Oh, Michael Heiser came up. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we have a wide range. I was trying to remind myself what this was even about. Why men shouldn't have long hair and women should have long hair, and
oh yeah, that one.
It's kind of bizarre.
Funky. The hair being like tubules that would hold in or let out some essence.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, so basically the hair became an extension of your sex organs or something, and that was the predominant view at the time. And so Paul is using this to say, you should have your hair be the right way in accordance with what your sex organ was, which I was like, I don't know where people get this from. Even if that was the thing, the belief at that time, I think there's much better, less cumbersome explanations of what Paul is saying there.
And I would have a real problem with the Holy Spirit inspiring Paul to use that argument to justify hair length.
Right.
That I
said I was against it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had some people say, well, if that was just the predominant thing, I think that's totally fine. That violates inerrancy beliefs that I have.
Yep. So just scrolling through, Chris Volatin, your identity as sons in God.
So he's part of Bethel.
Right. So basically he's saying that if Jesus, when he became God, there was this emptying.
He became man.
Yeah. When Jesus, thank you, it's late. When Jesus became man, there was this emptying of himself, the kenosis, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
And he did all of his miracles as a mere man by calling on or pulling up the power of either the Spirit or the Father. And they were never actually done out of his divinity. And as such, we could do all of the same miracles that Jesus does if we just, I don't know, fill in the blank, had enough faith, walked well enough, prayed hard enough. I don't know what the fill in the blank is. You would think that out of 2,000 years since Jesus and the time of the apostles went by, that if there was some standard to which you had to live up and then you could start doing crazy miracles, someone would have reached that standard and they would become well known, and like that, that whatever the fill in the blank Robert guy, he's working miracles, he's figured out the formula, and then he would tell other people what the formula is, and we would all be doing that. It's just a practical concern. All right, well, that's Theology Matters. It's a Facebook group. I think if you enjoyed our podcast and you're still listening, it's probably a group you would enjoy because it's
probably a group you're already a part of. Our group membership, I believe, is wider than our podcast viewership.
Right.
Or listenership, depending on the mode.
Yeah. But I'll post this one there, and we'll say, "Hey guys, we talked about you," and then we'll make a lot of money off of this podcast.
What are we up to so far? Like $5?
Yeah. Last I checked, it was 5 and some change. It may be up to 6 at this point in time. Let's just pull up and see all the money that's coming into the coffers. I mean, it's gonna be good.
It's gonna be huge.
$5.66.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So
if we do this for 55 years,
that's basically our retirement.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So this is unintentionally a longer podcast. We just got waxing on the group, and we love that.
Being silly and jokey and stuff, Sarah.
Yeah. So one of the moderators said that she knows we're very funny and we should let more of that come through. So we're We're trying to be funny. Okay. All right. So, do you want to close this out?
Sure. Let's see. What is it? Think well.
Do justice.
Love mercy.
And walk humbly. See you.
Bye.
You've been listening to Mike and Mike Theology Plus, the podcast where we talk about all things related to Christian theology.